incredible stories of people whom we consider, or we should consider them to be the followers of the Shia of Ahl-e-Bait, but they turn their back on Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Do you know why? Because of exactly this. There is a man by the name of Harthama, and this particular individual, Harthama ibn Abi Muslim. Listen to this story. If you doubt that the heart makes a big difference into the direction that we take. Harthama was on the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Safi. Harthama said, when we reached the land of Karbala, I saw Ali ibn Abi Talib sit on the ground, on the soil of Karbala, take the soil, smell it and cry. And said, oh sand and soil of Karbala, within you people will be buried, that on the day of Qiyamah shall enter Jannah without hisab. So I witnessed this. He went to his wife after they returned from Safi, this Harthama bin Abi Muslim, and said to his wife, I saw this and I asked Ali ibn Abi Talib, why are you saying this? He would tell me that my son will be slaughtered on this plains here. His wife said to him, Ali speaks only the truth. Remember this. On the 10th of Muharram, Harthama ibn Abi Muslim was there. Where? On the army of Yazid. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam sees it, calls it, come. Weren't you the one who saw my father say this in Karbala? He said, yes. He said, do you still testify that he said it? He said, yes. He said, are you with me or against me? He said, you know what? I'm neither with you or against you. I'm neutral. Is this believable? That a person who's so-called the follower of Ali ibn Abi Talib and with him in Saffin and recognizes what's haqq and what's batil stands before Sayyid Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, the grandson of the Holy Prophet, and says, you know what? I'm not really sure. I'm going to stand on the fence here and I'm just going to watch. Imam said to him, don't stand on the fence. Because if you hear my cry and you do not help me, Allah will place your face on the plains of Jahannam. You will not survive in terms of the punishment. If you do not come and support us and you hear our cry, go away from here. The recognition therefore is that there is an invitation that's presented to you and I, if we want to be truly the followers of Ahl-e-Bait, to recalibrate and re-examine and formulate our hearts to become what? More compassionate, more loving, more accepting, to remove the grudge and the envy and the hatred that we have on things that what? That exists out there. I tell you, there are some signs that exists that shows that we are far from being referred to as Shia in this particular regard. One of them is what? One of them is when I hear or come across an opinion presented by a scholar from within the school of Ahl-e-Bait that does not conform with my understanding and the way I was raised and the majalis that I heard. That's a big test. That's a big test. I'll give you an example. In North America, and I wouldn't mention the city that I went to, I was blessed to give a series of lectures on the mothers of the Ahl-e-Bait alayhim as-salam. These blessed individuals. The final one was what? Was on the great mother of the Imam of our time, Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, al-Mahdi al-Muntadha. I presented evidence from research conducted by well-known scholars that showed that the mother of the Holy 12th Imam was not a Roman princess. She was a slave from Africa, Nubia, same area as Fidda, Lady Fidda. She was dark in complexion, in Sahih riwayat from such as Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. This exists. If you want, check it out. If you're not convinced, that's not my point. I'm not here to convince you about this. When I finished, they said to me, there's a lady very upset waiting for you outside. Allah help me. I went there, this lady was shaking. How dare you do this? I said, what do you mean? What have I done? Astaghfirullah. She said, you have shaken my aqidah. I said, what have I said? She said, I am 60-something years old. All my life I know Narjis to be a Roman princess. Now you've made her a person who's black? How dare you? I said to her, sister, you're older than me, I respect you. Please don't raise your voice, it's okay. She said, my mind, everything has changed. You have changed my life. The question today is, when I hear something that doesn't conform to my understanding of things, do I have the tawadu', the humility to say, Ya Allah, guide me to the truth. Allow me to see what is haq. And if I don't, then no problem. I agree to disagree. I am there to have discussions with others. I am there to have dialogue when it comes to people who have difference of opinion than mine. But the moment I start a vendetta or attacks online or in society and community, just because things do not necessarily sit well with me, the question today I'd like to ask is, what is the cause of this illness in the heart? Someone might say, I want to get rid of it. I want to press the format button and clean my heart completely. I want to be a loving, compassionate person for all in society and not have this grudge or envy or jealousy when I see success or when I see people having things that I don't have, or any other reason that sometimes I have this ill disposition. What do I do? Where does it originate from? Imam Al-Hasan Al-Askari salawatullahi wa answers this in a beautiful way. He says, جُعِلَتِ الْخَبَائِث كُلُّهَا فِي بَيْتٍ. All the evil and the diseases of the soul are placed in a house. وَجُعِلَ الْكَذِبُ مِفْتَاحُهَا. That the keys to this is dishonesty and lying. It's very interesting, and perhaps this angle has not been looked at, or maybe we have not reflected on this. But we live in a society in the Western world where immorality is being normalized, where unfortunately practices such as lying, backbiting, dishonesty has become second nature. That people time and time again practice it because everybody around them does it. And just like passive smoking, many a times we do passive lying or passive deception and fabrication and distortion. And we think it's okay, but what it's doing to us, it's polluting our hearts. It's making us in a state which leaves a lot to be desired. You see, the Quran is very specific to send the la'na on groups of people. And out of all these individuals that the Quran has sent the la'na, meaning Allah's mercy is withdrawn from them, one that clearly stands out from amongst those who are considered Muslims even, is the liars. فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. This is, of course, found in Surah Al-Imran in the incident of Muwahala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is such a devastating illness that we need to extract it and what? Purify ourselves from it. Why? Because sometimes it is found in a subtle way in our lives and in our practices. And sometimes we do it without knowing that we do it. What do we mean? You and I recognize that it's considered to be one of the great sins in Islam. When I lie, when I deceive, when I cheat, yes, it is not acceptable. And it's interesting that the Holy Prophet Rasul al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked by an individual once, Ya Rasulullah, I lie and I fornicate and I drink alcohol. Which one shall I stop doing first? The Prophet says, lying. He says, okay. He goes home, he thinks, I'm going to drink. Astaghfirullah, ma'adallah. But then he says, if the Prophet asks me, did you drink? I can't lie. He thinks about stealing. He asks himself the same question. He then recognized that when I stop saying things which are not true, I will also stop committing other acts which are haram. Therefore, the recognition that emerges at the outset is that it is something that you and I know will devastatingly impact us. However, what's the worst form of dishonesty in Islam? What's the number one condemned element of people who speak things which are not true? It's when they deliberately lie against Allah and His Messenger, which is a factor that causes their fast to become void. You agree? It's the only thing, by the way. If you do backbiting, astaghfirullah, when your fasting is not void. If you steal, your fasting is not void. Right? But it's interesting that if you say a lie against Allah and His Messenger, this doesn't mean that these actions are okay. It means the severity of uttering words of untruthfulness against Allah and His Messenger is so devastating and so detrimental. Question, who does that? Who actually spreads things against God and His Messenger that's not true? I ask you, when it comes to attributing words to the Holy Prophet and the Ahl-e-Bait, how many of us sometimes do it inadvertently? Meaning that I say the Prophet said this, but the Prophet didn't. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentioned this, but he didn't. Or I forward them on WhatsApp. You know, alhamdulillah, that these machines that we have, they are able to withstand the 5,000 Jum'ah Mubarak messages we get.
Yeah.
But the problem is, when these hadiths, so to speak, or words uttered by the likes of Aristotle, or Socrates, or other thinkers and philosophers, all of a sudden the name of Imam Ali is stuck next to it. No reference, no book, nowhere to look for. But Molana, it's very nice. I'd like to share. Who asked you to share? Who gave you the responsibility of sending messages that are not verified? You ask me, what do I do? First of all, every hadith that you receive must have a reference. If it doesn't have a reference, there is only one button for it. Delete. But maybe it's a true hadith. Okay, maybe, but not good enough. We don't have the culture of understanding the severity of this. I am not saying that when you send it, you are deliberately lying against Allah and His Messenger. But you could contribute to the deliberate lying of Allah against Allah and His Messenger. Why? Because somebody may receive it and believe that Allah, or that it's from the hadith of the Holy Prophet or the Ahl-e-Bait, and you are an agent in spreading such narrations that do not necessarily exist in hadith literature. Wallah, this Muharram. You know, sometimes you get so shocked. I heard from a particular Zakir, he's sitting on the minbar, and he said, قال أبا عبد الله الحسين. Imam al-Hussein said, you know what he said? إلهي تركت الخلق ضرا في هواك وأيتمت العيال لكي أراك. Ya Allah, I have abandoned the creation for you, and I have made my children orphans. Imam never said this. This is a poem attributed to someone who is describing what Imam would feel like. You have to be careful. I cannot say Imam said a statement like this, whereas there is a zero reference and we cannot find anywhere that said Imam alayhi salam mentioned these words. The question therefore today is, are we contributing to this or not? And that's why we have to be indeed very careful. That's the first thing. Second thing is, sometimes people say, am I committing dishonesty without knowing what I am doing? What do you mean? There are what's known as the subtle ways in which lying takes place that sadly we need to nip and take it out from our practices. I'll give you 3 examples so that we can apply it to our lives. And these examples are found in the lives of Ma'sumin alayhi salam, where they highlighted against them. The first is when parents give false promises to their children. And it happens. I will give you, for example, ice cream if you pray. The child prays, we don't have ice cream. And their freezer is full of ice cream. I will let you play PS5, yes, if you, for example, do your Rosa fast. Complete the Rosa, I'm going to give you this candy instead. It happens when you tell them, my respected father, respected mother, on what basis are you lying? Oh, Molana, she's only 5. It's okay. Listen to this hadith. Once a person by the name of Abdullah ibn Amir said that the Holy Prophet of Islam was in our house. And my mother called me, I was child. So she said to me, oh Abdullah, if you come, I give you something. Clearly he was a troubling child. He would not listen to his mother. The Prophet was in the house. So the Prophet looks at his mother and says to her, ما أردت أن تعطي. If he was to come, what were you going to give him? She said, Tamra. I would give him dates. The Prophet says, Amma innaki law lam ta'tihi shay'an kutibat laki kadhiba. If he had come and you would not give him anything, it will be written for you as a lie. It's a lie. Molana, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 1 week till their taklif so I can still lie to them. This is not something that is acceptable. We have to be careful. Why? 2 reasons. Number 1, we are developing the habit of lying, whether we like it or not, even if it's children. Number 2, we are teaching them it's okay to lie, because they will recognize we are being dishonest, and therefore they will normalize that behavior. That's number 1. That's the first area in which sometimes we are lying without necessarily knowing. The other area is the following. What is known in Arabic, and I think Urdu also, as mujamala. What is this? This is, for example, you are inviting somebody home, and it's night, and they are being offered food, and they say, sorry, I don't eat at night. But they eat at night. But they're just being, a bit mujamala. They don't want to, somehow eat, so they give an excuse, for example. Or you are presenting some people with sweets. No, I never eat sweets. You do. But you're saying to people, I don't eat sweets. I'm very good. Yes? This idea is problematic. Why? Because it is not true. It is not something that you're uttering the truth. Here, one day, the wives of the Holy Prophet of Islam were sitting. He was next to them, and he said to one of his wives, وَزِّعِ اللَّبَنِ, there is a milk, I want you to distribute to the ladies sitting there. So one of them stands to give this milk to the ladies, and they begin to say the following, لَا نَشْتَهِي, no, I'm full, I don't want it. Some people, you give them food and they say, sorry, I am full. Be careful to say I am full if you're not. Just say, I don't want. Yes? The Prophet says, when they were being given this milk, they said, no, we are full. Look at what the Prophet of Islam looked at them and said, لَا تَجْمَعَنَّ جُوعًا وَكَذَبًا. Don't combine hunger and lying together. You are hungry. The Prophet knows that you are hungry, but you're also lying. Perhaps you don't want to take this milk from that person who's distributing, but don't combine them both together. The recognition is, you have to be careful and be as honest as possible without the fear to upset others. Because sometimes you say, I don't want to upset someone, therefore I will navigate. That's number 2. Number 3 is praise. Please understand this. I have been in gatherings or even in commemoration events where somebody stands to give, for example, a speech in honor of someone who's passed away, or a graduation ceremony, or a particular party, somebody is being invited, and the praise they mention is what? Is somehow raises eyebrows. One of the bravest, one of the best, one of the most superb human beings on this earth. I have not seen a better human being than him. Calm down. Calm down. Because ultimately, this excessive praise is a problem. It's Mashaallah ishkal. Oh, but Molana, I'm just saying it because it's nice. What do you mean you're saying it? It's nice. You are uttering words that are not necessarily true. Therefore, the invitation that's given to you and I, and that is to be careful of the words that we utter. To be indeed reflecting exactly what is it that we are saying, and we nurture the environment of truthfulness and sidq. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the day of Qiyamah, sidq emerges as a very important quality that helps a human being. هَذَا يَوْمُ يَنْفَعُ الصَّادِقِينَ صِدْقُهُم. Allah says on the day of Qiyamah, the truthfulness of those who are truthful will definitely help them. It will be a major source of assistance for those on the day of Qiyamah. That's why I remember this responsibility that we have to take these and apply them in Muharram and Safar. Please, these are months for refining the heart. These are months to make us better human beings, to understand our responsibilities, to see, are we up to being called Shi'at Hussein or Shi'at Sajjad? If I am up to that, then I need to work very hard. And for that to happen, I need to make sure that I reflect upon these lessons and I instill them in my life. How many times, and I make this habit often, in Muharram and Safar, I go to different communities, and especially in Rabi' al-Awwal, I speak to many community members in different parts of the world, and I say, how is the majalis? Or even after the first 12 nights, they say, Mashaallah, this year majalis was amazing. It was one of the best we've heard. I say, really, Mashaallah? What lessons did you learn? Well, I can't remember. The best majalis and you can't remember anything? I remember Molana, he was amazing because we mentioned 5 Narahi days. Okay. Fantastic. Let it be 5,000 Narahi days. Did you learn anything? Are you able to say that this year Muharram, I'm better than last year Muharram? Am I able to somehow instigate that change? Have I looked at my heart from within? Am I someone who is latching on to Abu Abdullah and not letting go of him? What do we mean? There is a famous scholar today who is a historian. He's written many books about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Sheikh Hamdani, he says this story, which is very, very interesting. He recently came out and said that what? I have a friend who is a khadim of Imam al-Hussein. His name is Haji Abu Zainab. He was somebody who used to serve the Zuwar during the time of the wretched Saddam, the previous government in Iraq, because they were not allowed to sit in the courtyard, so he would bring them rugs. And they would sit to recite ziyarah. He would endanger his life. And alhamdulillah, he continued afterwards when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed that despotic regime. And what happened? That he continued to serve the Zuwar. One day, the Sheikh said, I was traveling with him back from Karbala after ziyarah on a Thursday night. He said to me, Sheikh, I have to bid farewell to you. He said, why? Where are you going? He said, to Akhirah, to meet Allah. He said, what do you mean? He said, next Thursday I will not be with you. And I will not join you. Where will you be? He said, look, Sheikh, I don't have ilm al-ghayb, I don't have knowledge of the unseen, but I have fairly strong confidence that I will depart this week. This coming week I will leave this world. He said, why? Tell me. How can you be so sure? He said, let me tell you what happened a few nights ago. He said, a few nights ago, in my dream, I saw myself with thousands of people on the shore next to the sea. And the sea had many small boats. And on those boats, there were creations of God that were completely white. I couldn't see who they were. They were helping people to come on the boat. And I got on the boat. We went for a distance until there was a massive, beautiful, amazing, spectacular ship. I have never seen a ship like it. We were helped on. We got on board. Then I saw all these thousands of people inside the ship, and I looked at these creations of God, and I asked, where are we? They looked at me and said, this is Safinatul Hussein. This is the ship of Abu Abdullah. Yes. Inna al-Hussein misbah al-huda wa safinah. Hussein is the ship of salvation. He said, when I heard this, I was so delighted. I was overjoyed that I am on the ship of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He said, then I was shocked because I saw people standing on the edge of the ship and throwing themselves into the water. Coming out. And there were hundreds, so many. So at that moment, I rushed to stop them. Why are you doing this? Why are you throwing yourself into the sea? These creations of God stopped me and said, don't worry, Hajji. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let them. I said, why? What's happening? They said, they have lost Hussein. They have lost him. So now they are throwing themselves from the ship. They had the chance. They had the opportunity to be in a ship. But they did not take that opportunity. Ya Hajj! Oh, in a few days' time, by next Thursday, you will be with Hussein. So the Sheikh said to him, I'm not sure, let's see. He said, Wallah, in 3 days I heard the news, Hajj Abu Zainab has died and passed away. Today the question is, am I latching on to Abu Abdullah or letting go? Am I able to hold on? Am I able to be in that ship of salvation? That ship that there is no ship like it. The 8th Holy Imam would say to people what? He would say, latch on to the ship of Hussein. They said, aren't you all ships of salvation? He said, we are. وَلَكِنَّ سَفِينَةَ الْحُسَيْنِ أَوْسَعَ. But but the ship of Hussein is bigger. And in the oceans, it's faster. Latch on to this means of salvation. That's why we recognize those in Karbala are described by the Imam as those who are truthful. Understand this. This is key. If we want to be like the Shia of Hussein, the Shia of Sajjad, the Shia of Ali, the Shia of Ahl-e-Bait, we need to display and exhibit truthfulness. Why? Because a common surah ayah that was recited by Imam alayhi salam when the companions would leave is the following. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. From amongst the believers are men who are truthful to the covenant they gave to Allah. An Imam would recite this for nearly every person would leave to the battlefield, in order to demonstrate that these individuals were truthful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only truthful by giving their lives, but they were sadiq in their words, in their actions. They were individuals who clarified and purified and indeed cleansed their hearts from all kinds of evil and corruption. I ask you, today, can you find me one narration, just one, whereby any of Sahabatul Hussein complained or said, what is this? This is not good. Find me one. Can you see their status? Not a single one of them doubted, despite the fact that they were about 100 or so, facing 30,000, and now they recognized their status, and they knew what they're about to go into, but they embraced it with submission and surrender, truthfulness in the heart, the strength of being truly the Shia of Hussein, because they were considered to be the true followers of Abu Abdullah. And that's why today it's of the utmost importance that you and I recognize the duties before ourselves to follow these holy individuals and these people who gave their lives. What do we have to do? We need to ensure that we lead by example when it comes to our children. That's number one. Number two, and please listen to this final message. Today we live in societies whereby easily the wrong has been presented as an okay or right. And it's no longer frowned upon. We live in societies where, unfortunately, vices and sins have become so common and easy to practice. What do we need to do? We need to create fortresses. Please mind and carefully put this in our minds. We need to protect ourselves from all the particular infusion of ideologies and poisonous thoughts and practices that exist. How? It starts at home, number one, without a shadow of a doubt. Parents leading by example. Secondly, of the utmost importance, we need to be advocates and supporters today more than any other time of Islamic schools. 100%. And I tell you this coming directly from Najaf. The Marja'iyya, both in Najaf and in Qom, have said time and time again that this day and age we are living in a situation where our children are bombarded with thoughts and practices which are misleading so many. We need to create an environment whereby they flourish and nourished Islamically. And that can only be through what? A Muslim Islamic school that adheres to the teachings of the Ahl-e-Bait. And this, to be honest, should not be something that we need to convince people. Allah, I don't understand. I'll be honest with you, in London, this London where everyone says, you know, you guys, Mashaallah, you're ahead of us by so many years. We're not. Let me tell you why. Entire London with thousands, tens of thousands of Shia. One Shia school. Just one. That's it. And there is a huge problem. Suffering of our children, the loss of the Shia identity, the followers of Ahl-e-Bait, alayhim salam. It's of the utmost importance that the community here in New Jersey is aware of the challenges that are coming as far as rainbow flags being seen at all times. Do not underestimate what's going to happen. I came across a book last year, and it is entitled How to Be Gay. Inside there is a chapter, How to Answer Muslims. how to debate with Muslims and convince them that it's okay. Our children are being bombarded in cartoons, in Netflix, in every social media, in order for them and their aqa'id, their beliefs to be diluted. If we do not wake up and realize the dangers facing us, if we do not sacrifice and place their tarbiyah and Islamic education above all our concerns, supporting schools like As-Sadat school here, and making sure that we take part, we bring our kids, we encourage the establishment of such schools, make it grow, make even more grades established as we go along, make it flourish. It's our responsibility. There is no doubt in my mind that this is what the Imam of our time wants from us. No doubt. This is something we must not take lightly. And the final point I mention is this, and some of you may disagree with this, but today more than any other time, it's time for you and I to stand up with honor, with dignity, with valor and courage and say, I am a Shi'i of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The world recognizes Hussein, the world recognizes Ali, the world recognizes the Shia now more than ever before. It's not now time for me to say, you know what, I am Muslim. No problem. Me, as a Shi'i, follower of the Ahl-e-Bait, I respect my brothers and sisters from other schools. I pray with them, I visit them, I eat with them. That's no problem whatsoever. I have never been sectarian, and the school of Ahl-e-Bait denounces sectarianism. But I have my identity, I have my Ahl-e-Bait, I have my path, I have my salvation. And this is why I have to advocate. Allah, sometimes people ask me this question, and once in university in London, someone objected to me when I said this. He said to me, brother, but we are all Muslim. I said, no problem. But do you have a passport? He said, what do you mean? I said, you have one? Answer me. He said, yes. I said, when you go countries, what happens when you go countries? He said, I have my passport. I said, when you go to any country, is it okay to enter it with us as the passport? He says, no. I said, why? He said, because normally you need a visa. I said, listen very carefully. My passport to Jannah is Islam. My visa to Jannah is Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Oh, subhanallah, subhanallah. Visa.
Why should I dilute my aqidah and belief? Why should I be afraid to express the fact that I am a follower of Ahl-e-Bait? The Ahl-e-Bait want us to spread the teachings. If I am not honored to be called a Shi'i Muslim, who's going to tell people about Ali Muhammad? Who's going to show people the akhlaq of Ali Muhammad, the legacy of Ali Muhammad, the greatness of Ali Muhammad? I am carrying their flag. I want my child to do the same. I need my child to develop that confidence, that courage, to be able to stand up even though they may be hostile and say that whatever happens, I will not give up my identity of being
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Ya Hilli.
Indeed, that is a responsibility upon us all. We must never
Subhanallah, Subhanallah.
Yes, because why? I ask you, today when we remember the Holy Fourth Imam, when we remember Zayn al-Abidin, this exceptionally brilliant human being, I ask you, how much of the world knows about him? How many have been introduced to his great legacy and his teachings? Have we done justice to Ali Muhammad? Because maybe we have been afraid to come out and say, I am a Shi'i. I respect everyone, but that's my identity. Yes? Maybe. If we had done our jobs properly, tonight in Baqi' there will be Zuwar and there will be a shrine. Maybe. If we have truly come out to say who we are. But this should not make us weak. This should give us determination. This should give us strength that without shadow of doubt, we are able to continue to defend the legacy of Ahl-e-Bait and to indeed be sources of pride for them, no doubt. Tonight we mentioned Baqi'. I ask you, this Jannatul Baqi' that breaks the heart when you and I go to see it. Those graves of the Imams alayhi salam, all alone on a night like this, on these nights of Shahad of the fourth Imam. You'll find majlis all around the world, but not in Jannatul Baqi'. You'll find people crying for Imam Zayn al-Abidin, but not in Jannatul Baqi'. You'll find millions of Zuwar and and in Mashhad, and in Qadamain and Samarra, but not Jannatul Baqi. There is a poet who comes to describe a beautiful conversation between Baqi and Karbala. Imagine that the land of Baqi and Medina speaks to the land of Hussein and Abbas and says, "O land of Hussein, what masa'ib did you see? Tell me, what witnesses do you have of the calamities?" Karbala says, "Baqi, you don't have Zuwar and you don't have a shrine, but your shrines are Bayn al-Haramayn. You will not be forgotten, O Baqi. But I would like you to tell me the masa'ib that you went through when you saw." Baqi and Medina would say, "I witnessed Fatima being slapped. I witnessed Zahra being crushed between the wall and the door. I witnessed the cries of the daughter of the Holy Prophet because of the pain and the miscarriage of her unborn baby. I witnessed these actions one after the other. I witnessed Al-Hassan's body being riddled with arrows. And I witnessed the domes of the Ahl-e-Bait being destroyed and made onto the ground. I don't have Zuwar and I don't have shrines, but Karbala, tell me of the musibah that you witnessed." Karbala would say, "Oh, the land of Mujtaba and Sajjad and Baqir and Sadiq. Oh, the land of the Prophet and Fatima. The masa'ib that you witnessed, I witnessed as well." How? What did you see, O land of Karbala? O Baqi, you saw Fatima being slapped. I saw Zainab being slapped. O Baqi, you saw the ribs of Fatima crushed. I felt the ribs of Hussein crushed. O Baqi, you heard the cries of Fatima. I heard the cries of Sakina and Zainab. But I witnessed these calamities and more. Let me tell you, whether it was the body of Abbas falling on the ground without arms that broke, and whether it was Qasim calling out his uncle Hussein when someone hit his head with a pole, or whether it was Awn al-Muhammad crying and bidding farewell to their uncle, yet coming back into pieces. Yet, O Baqi', there is one thing that we both share. You saw Muhsin losing his life. I saw the arrow in the throat of Asghar. I saw that baby, as that baby of Hussein, being slaughtered from one plane to another, from one vein to the other. I saw one musibah after the other. Oh Baqi', my land shook when I felt those enemies approaching the body of Hussein, isn't it? The narrations tell us in Medina, yes, in Medina, Sayyida Zainab, when she arrives to her house. That moment when she arrives in her house, she goes inside the room, she finds that Awn and Muhammad are not there. She begins to cry, she begins to remember them. The first time she cries, that moment the door knocks. She is asked, nobody comes in. But who comes in? It's not anybody. It's al-Baneen, the mother of Abbas, the mother of the other three Shuhada'i Karbala. The riwayah says when Zainab stood there, she saw al-Baneen. At that moment, al-Baneen looks at Zainab, their eyes looking at each other. I wonder what Zainab would say. I wonder what al-Baneen would say. Imagine, because al-Baneen would cry out, "Oh, Hussein, Hussein," and Zainab would say, "Abbas, Abbas," because the poet then describes how Zainab explains to al-Baneen what happened on the plains of Karbala. She would say, "Oh, al-Baneen, Abbas went and never returned. Oh, al-Baneen, Awn and Muhammad went and never returned. Qasim went and never returned. These Shuhada went and never returned. And I ask you, Oh al-Baneen, how difficult would have been for them to feed Aba Abdullah any water. But al-Baneen, what broke my heart on the day of Ashura is when I was standing on that cliff and I looked at that wretched La'een Shimmer, and he looked at me and I said to him, how dare you? He ignored me and he walked towards my Hussein. That broke my heart. Oh al-Baneen, I could not look anymore. The Malaika, everyone was crying. Oh al-Baneen, the next thing I saw was the head of Hussein on a spit.